Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Speaking Sessions podcast. I've got Evan Johnson here. He is a podcaster. He helps people actually launch their podcasts and get those published. He owns a business around all that where he actually is client-centered focused, where he I'm blinking on this now. I'm so sorry about that, Evan, but basically he helps people based on referrals only. He doesn't work out there going and marketing himself like crazy, just trying to find random people. He works based on word of mouth. He's a huge networker, which I really love. And he's a younger entrepreneur. I hate to point that out completely, but I do want to give you that credit there as well at the same time, because a lot of people, just like you and I, being millennials, that they think of us as somebody who can't do something, or we're too lazy and we're undisciplined. But like we were just talking about offline, being an entrepreneur and being a solopreneur, you really have to be super disciplined on that. So I actually want to open, after you give a little more intro about yourself, I want to open up and ask that question about how do you stay disciplined and focused as a solopreneur?
Right. So yeah, I mean that's who I am, Evan Johnson, and I am very happy being young. I got to be honest, I want to hold on to it as long as I can. So do not be sorry, and I hope for I want that to keep being part of my intro for as long as possible, because one day it's not going to be, and being young is very nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could always still be, people are young at heart, right? So you could be 60 years old.
True.
And, yeah, I'm
I
still a young
also like
man.
being young in body though.
This is
Young at
very
heart is
true.
great, but I mean young in body is also very nice.
This is very true.
Um, so yes, I'm a young entrepreneur. I am right now 23. And like you mentioned, I do podcasting. I edit and produce podcasts. I have a business mainly built around invitation and referral only, meaning I only work with people I like. I don't just blast a one-off product or service all over Facebook and Google and Instagram or whatever for someone to just come through, buy, and then leave. Um, Clients are very ongoing. It's very relationship based, so that doesn't really work as well for me.
Yeah.
um, and then remind me of the question that you asked.
So, how do you maintain your discipline as a solopreneur, especially as a younger person? Because we look at young people and they're just always stuck on their phone, right? That's the stereotype. So, how do you keep that and maintain that discipline and really go against that status quo?
Right. So, first of all, I want to say that there is no set hours a person needs to work in a day. It's not like uh, if one day maybe you're feeling kind of off and you worked, I don't know, 6 instead of 8 hours or whatever. Um, no, you're not a bad person. So I think a lot of it is you have to take some of that pressure off of yourself, right? It just depends on
Mm,
how fast how much work you're willing to put in to grow. And that also kind of ties into the work smarter, not harder mentality. Hustle culture is okay, right? Hustling is good. There's a time and a place to you have to put in the work, but at the same time, you shouldn't needlessly put in just a billion hours. If someone says they're busy, a lot of people wear that as a badge of honor. I do not. I think that's stupid. I think the whole point of being an entrepreneur is that you're not busy. And I think if a entrepreneur is incredibly busy, that is a sign that they are not outsourcing as much um, as they could be. So I'm like, all right, yeah, fine, be busy. I'm gonna continue to not be busy or as busy as you. So as far as staying disciplined, it's very cliche and everyone says it, but you need to be clear about what you want and who you're helping. Like me being able to really concisely say, oh yeah, I didn't produce podcasts. Um, I work with coaches, leaders, and other heart-centered entrepreneurs, helping them start, grow, and maintain a podcast. And I help take over the production of existing shows. And I have a business built on invitation and referral only. And I build that through having powerful interviews on my podcast. That's what I do. And it took me many years to be able to say what I do in such a concise and clean way. Um, and also, I just said that in, what, I don't know, 5 seconds. So very simple. It's my whole marketing strategy right there. And, I invite people on the podcast. I can dive into more specifics about how I make that happen if you want. But I invite someone on the podcast. I have an incredible interview with them. I follow up. We have a relationship. They refer clients to me. Maybe, right? It's okay if they don't.
mm,
If they do, that's awesome. Or maybe even they become clients themselves. Um, It's a very simple strategy, and I've been able to stay disciplined because of that. Because if it's too complicated, then you're going to get over your head and you're not going to do it. So hopefully that answers your question. But simplicity, that's how you stay disciplined.
Yeah, that's perfect, man. Simplicity, definitely. I think we oftentimes we overcomplicate it. We think to be disciplined, like you said, we need to be busy 24/7, working 10, 12, 15 hours a day, going
That
nonstop at all
sucks.
times. And that's not the case. You know, I've
No,
got a
just pick one
mentor,
thing and
Andy.
then do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got a mentor, Andy Frisella, that talks about a lot of times winning the day, 5 power tasks or power list. It's got 5 things on it. He does those 5 things, he's won the day. Some days
Oh
it
yeah,
takes him an hour. Some days it might take him 10 because of everything
exactly.
else going on with his
And
businesses.
for especially a new entrepreneur or someone really struggling with this, I'd say that's awesome. I would say for that person, do a power list consisting of one thing. 5 things is great, but he is definitely, I'm sure, been in this game for some time. So let's start out with one and then get to 5.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point too. Like you said, make it simple. Just start with one little thing and slowly build onto
Yeah.
that.
Because I mean,
And you
5 things,
mentioned,
there's a lot of things. One
yeah,
thing is
or it
just one
can
thing.
be, depending on how big you make those
Depending
tasks.
on what
Now,
it is. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. Now it's like, oh yeah, make sure I go take the trash out today. Okay, let's make it a little bit
Right.
more complex than that, and let's make it more business focused as well. That's
Right,
another
right,
thing. You
right.
can create
In the
by
same way
task,
that,
no
like,
problem.
5, if you're going to start running, you don't start with 5 miles, you start with 1 mile. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If you're going to start building a business, you don't start with 5 different strategies. You start with one,
Mm-hmm.
and then, you grow from there.
Or 5 products, right? You
Or
start with
five
that
products,
one
or
product.
whatever. Whatever
Yeah,
works for you.
yeah.
You
Oh
get the
yeah, oh
sentiment of what
yeah.
I'm saying.
But I do like that you have that one product. You essentially help people. I guess you kind of do 2 services. Either you take over the production for an existing podcast, or you help start up that, which pretty much they align
They're pretty much the same
perfectly. But
thing.
it's yeah, it's basically the same thing, but it just
It
a
ends up being the
slight
same
variation.
thing.
Yeah,
If it's
yeah. Oh
new,
yeah.
then I'll help start it. But then after it's started, then it's just the ongoing production, which is
Hmm.
the same thing as if the podcast already existed. And of course, I mean, a podcast, there's multiple things to it. There's audio, there's video, there's show notes, there's
Hmm.
graphic design, all that kind of stuff. But that is encompassed in what it takes to have a podcast. So I kind
Yeah.
of count it as one thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. For sure. At the end of the day, it definitely is one thing. Sometimes, but that self process looks a little different, just a little bit different.
Oh yeah,
But
it's
what got?
very individualized. It depends on what each
Mhm.
person,
Mhm.
what the goals are. Got to be clear. So I
Yeah.
guess that simplicity, but it only works if you're clear.
Yeah. For sure. And the goals, everybody overcomplicates those as well. Like, what is that end goal? And they're like, well, it's like all arbitrary. It's like, no, if it comes down to one thing at the end, what is that one thing you ultimately want to get out of that thing, whatever you're going after? But I
Yep.
want to ask you, what got you started with podcasting? Why did you decide to do podcast editing and helping people with their podcasts versus any other business you could have done?
Yeah. So I started my business when I was in high school. I was, I believe, like a junior probably. I was probably 16 when I started the podcast business, and I started it because my mom was an entrepreneur for my entire life, really.
Mm,
Um, I saw her doing a bunch of different businesses since I was quite young. And when I was in high school, she had a business and she had a podcast with that business. And she asked me one day when I started, thinking about maybe wanting some extra money, because most high schoolers do. It's nice to have some extra spendable money, right?
oh
She
yeah.
saw me kind of thinking about that and offered. She said, "Hey, if I teach you how to edit my podcast, and then pay a little bit of money to do it, would you do it?" And I was like, "Okay." And so she taught me how to do it, pretty basic, and then I started doing it, and then she was like, "Why don't you do this for other people?" And I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh, okay, good idea." And so she referred me my first real client, because I mean, your mom doesn't count really. And
Right,
then,
right. It's like
yeah,
your mom supports you on everything, but she doesn't
exactly.
really count, but she
And you
does.
feel, I feel kind of bad. Like I definitely would charge. I'm not gonna charge as much as I charge everybody else, right?
Oh yeah.
So she referred me my first real client, who then referred me another client, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. Um, and so that is kind of how it started. And it's definitely been a journey, and there have been a lot of thoughts and introspection around, well, is podcasting something I want to stick with, right? Because
Mm.
I kind of just fell into it. Because as a high school kid, you kind of just, I was a very kind of go with the flow kid. I was like, I don't know, whatever. I don't know what else I want to do, so this is fine, right? This makes some money. I make some money, and I get to work for my pajamas, and that's all I cared about. And so, life is pretty simple when you're in high school. But then as I started to grow more, right, I started to get older. I was like, well, hold on a minute. Do I really enjoy podcasting,
Mm.
right? Like, do I actually like doing this? And through ups and downs, and I kind of paused the business for a little while. I tried coaching, and I came back to it, and I just realized, like, no, I like doing this. I have a team now that takes over a lot of the editing work, so I can focus on the part that I enjoy, which is the conversations and the relationships. And so my business produces podcasts, but me personally, a more accurate description of what I do is I have powerful conversations with people I find interesting and want to talk to. And I think that is what I enjoy doing. So, and podcasting allows me to do that. So that's kind of, it's been a journey, but I've finally, honestly, it's only been within the last like year or two where I've
Mm.
really been able to like nail that down, so accurately for me.
Mm. And how did that make you feel? I feel like a lot of people they just get stuck doing something, especially entrepreneurs if they're solo or maybe they have a small team, but they get stuck doing everything. And some of that, of course, goes back to ego, I believe. But how did that make you feel when you finally went more towards your passion and delegated a lot of that work that you didn't necessarily want to do to your team?
I understand why a solopreneur, right, would or has, because many of them do. I understand why they would have a hard time outsourcing, right?
Mm.
Like what you're saying. Frankly, I understand it like logically, but
Mm.
honestly, just like in my heart, I don't get it because podcasting is amazing and I love having these conversations. But like, who actually likes like pulling up GarageBand or whatever and like cutting and trimming audio? Well, people do, and I enjoyed it enough to do it. Right, you have to enjoy it enough to
Mm.
do it. But if you've read The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, highly recommend. It's not on my zone of genius. Luckily, I've been able to find team members who it is. My
Mm.
guy loves doing that, and he does it better than I ever did, and I was pretty good. And so it's like I would if an entrepreneur, so talking to someone who's in that position, I would ask them, do you seriously love every aspect of your business? You wake up in the morning and you're like, hell yeah, let's go check those emails.
Yeah.
Or, hell yeah, let's write copy for a Facebook ad or whatever.
Let's
Do
do the
you like doing
accounting and
that?
the HR stuff.
Yeah. Hell yeah, let's go get our taxes sorted out. I love it.
Yeah.
Who likes doing that? Like, but people do like doing it. A
Oh
lot of
yeah.
people
Oh yeah.
do. So
Yeah.
it depends on if you do or not. And if you don't, why the hell are you doing it? And a lot of people, my business is my baby, right?
Mm.
Okay, sure, but nannies are a thing. You still have a life. Like, and it's still gonna be your baby no matter what. So yeah, no, I'm very passionate about outsourcing because I hate it when I see a solo entrepreneur where busy and working 100 hours a week is a badge of honor, and it's like, no, man, it's not. That
Yeah.
sucks. The whole point of being an entrepreneur is you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
That's like the whole reason most people do it is for that freedom. And if so, it's like the solopreneur who refuses to outsource when they're at a stage where they could, is the guy who is I'm in business for freedom, but I refuse to give myself that freedom. So I would just say, take a good look at your business and see what you can outsource and what you don't like doing, and outsource it to someone who could do it better and faster than you.
Mm.
So I know it
Man,
might be a
that's
bit harsh, but like people need to hear it, I think.
no, I mean you're exactly right. And I like that analogy about like your baby, you give your baby up to a nanny sometimes, but yeah,
Or even just school, right? Send them to school
yeah.
for 6 hours a day.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly. But it's like that's the thing we should love the most in
Yeah,
life, aside our spouse. One of
exactly.
the things we should love the most is our
Yeah, but
children.
like you're outsourcing that child's education
Yeah.
to a teacher, right?
Hmm.
And you love your kid more than your business, I hope. And
Yeah.
so
Hopefully.
why would you outsource, the majority of your child's life and experiences, but
Hmm.
not anything from your business? It's like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then the other way too, you see these parents that really coddle their kids and they just do everything for their kids. And when their kids are supposed to be fully grown and out on their own, where are they at? Back
Yeah,
at home. They're
a lot
waiting
of
on mom
those.
and dad to take care of them because they have no clue what to do. And so it's the same with your business because there's going to be a time where you're sick, where you need to go on vacation, something happens that's out of your control and
If
you
you
can't
take a
be
week
there.
off and your business collapses, then you're
Yeah.
not doing it right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you can't take even a day off or a week off and the business keep running, you're doing it wrong. You're
If you
coddling
can't
it too
even take
much.
one day off, then you're really doing it
Yeah.
wrong. Then you're the parent who says no, you can't go over to their house and you can't invite anyone over here. No
Yeah.
boys until you're 19 or whatever. Like then you're that kind of parent with your business, and those kids tend to not grow up too great, to be honest.
No, no, and they're not survivors at all, man. They're not going to thrive in life. So that's why your business
No,
isn't
they're
going to
not.
thrive. So I'm glad you brought up that whole nanny baby analogy because man, that's so true when it comes to business. But I want to take us back to podcasting, back to speaking, because that's what this podcast is all about: is speaking, help people get
Oh
better
yeah.
at that. So, what are some tips that you'd give for people to get better at podcasts?
Right. Yeah, yeah. Podcasting is definitely speaking. I like to think of it as a kind of a stepping stone to speaking on stage, or the kind
Mm-hmm.
of things that you talk about,
Mm-hmm.
because it's pre-recorded. You can't do it live, but even if you do it live, you're still in the comfort of your own home behind
Mm.
a computer screen, right?
Yeah.
And this conversation right now is pre-recorded. We're not live, so it takes a lot of that pressure off. However, it still is speaking. And I have no formal training when it comes to podcasting and speaking. Just, I guess it'd be more like kind of radio announcing as opposed to public speaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what I do is very conversational. It's not scripted. Whereas if you're on a stage and you have a scripted speech, you have to read. Podcasting is a bit different. It's more radio esque in that way. But I didn't have any formal training. I am the speaker I am today because I've been doing it for years, and I've recorded. I've definitely recorded over 100 episodes, and so that is how I've been able to become the speaker I am today. As far as like tips for someone who's trying to get into it, or wanting to improve their speaking, just something actionable to think about is be comfortable with silence and be comfortable with pauses in your speaking, because otherwise that's when people talk really, they fill it with ums and ahs and other kind of
Mm-hmm.
filler sounds that aren't necessary, instead of just taking a second. That's okay. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh
And so
yeah.
being comfortable with silence and practice are my two things. You have to start practicing. Doesn't matter how much you read or how much you research. Honestly, it is no substitute for actually practicing it and implementing it. So, if that answers your
Uh,
question, yeah.
No, that does perfectly. I mean, it does really come down to practice at the end of the day. Of course,
Oh yeah.
going back and reviewing what you do, learning new things
Oh
is
yeah. I
very
was
important as well.
garbage. Oh my god.
Yeah,
I hope to. I swear. I hope so much that no one goes back and listens to my first episodes.
I'm
I
gonna go
was
back and listen to it
garbage. I was
now,
just
and then I'm gonna be like,
really
man, episode one versus episode 100, totally different. The Evan you get
do it.
now,
Yeah. If someone
20
listens to the
million
first
times better.
episode, someone should then go listen to my most recent one and compare, and hopefully use that as an inspiration. Because man, yeah, I wasn't great, but it exists. It is out there, and I'm not taking it down.
Yeah,
And
exactly. You
people have
can't.
to do that in order. Like you can't do that. You have to. Your first like 10 episodes are going to be garbage, and there's nothing you can do about it. As far as like a podcast goes, there's
Yeah.
literally no way to avoid it unless you've already launched 10 podcasts. Because then it's
Mm-hmm.
not your first 10 episodes, right? You've already recorded a bunch.
Yeah.
But if you're starting podcasting, your first 10 episodes, probably your first 30 episodes are going to suck. They're going to be bad. You know what I mean? As far as just you
Oh
as a
yeah.
speaker.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, that sucks, but you have to do it because you
Yeah.
can't get
But
to episode 100 when you're great until
mhm.
you've gone through the fires.
Exactly. But the great thing is, it's probably just your mom listening the first 10 episodes. So she loves you
Probably.
either way, and you're just amazing. So,
Exactly. Also, you actually did it, so it's honestly not even that. It's not that bad because you put yourself out there and you started doing it.
hmm,
So anyone who would actually think negatively, well, screw them because they didn't have the guts to actually start their own podcast.
yeah. And you may be able to help me out with this statistic, but I believe it's most podcasts stop after like the first 10 episodes, or
Oh
within
yeah.
the first 10 episodes, people stop their
It's like
podcast.
70 or 90% or some crazy
Yeah,
thing.
it's
Podcasts are
crazy.
10 episodes or less.
So what's some advice you give people to continue to go on through that, say, 10 episode barrier, if you will? Because I know it's scary. You don't want to get on the mic. Also, you're probably not seeing numbers and you're hoping that you're getting into hundreds or thousands of downloads and you're at like two. And
Good
it's
luck
like
with that. Yeah,
somebody
right.
in the middle of nowhere, in some other foreign country you have no clue about. Somehow they found your podcast and they listened to it. So, what kind of advice would you give for people to continue to go? Because I'm sure you deal with this some with your clients as well.
Right. It depends on why you have a podcast in the first place. I try to part of my kind of fielding process when I decide whether or not I'm going to work with someone,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't just take anyone, right?
Yeah.
Part of my fielding process is I kind of try to gauge exactly how serious they are, right? I don't want to
Mm.
sign someone on as a client and then maybe we release like 3 episodes and then they fall off the face of the earth. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's happened. And it
Yeah.
kind of sucks because it's like, well, we already put on this work to launch the podcast and you're just going to quit, you know? And
Yeah.
so you have to know why you're doing it.
Mm.
If you don't like podcasting, then don't do one. You know what I mean? If you don't think it's going to be a benefit, if you're doing it just because you think it's some new hip marketing strategy or whatever, and you want to jump on the bandwagon, then don't do that, right? You have to do a podcast because you actually want to have a podcast.
Mm.
So if you know why you have it and if you know how it fits into your business, and I can talk to you a little bit about more specifically how I've been able to use my podcast creatively to, grow a business and how, other people use it. But if you know why you have a podcast and you know how you're going to use it and how it's helping your business, then there's your motivation, first of all, because you need to be consistent with that. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And as far as, someone who's nervous now about me saying, oh, your first 10 episodes are going to be garbage. Well, first of all, being garbage is a bit harsh. I mean, I'm sure they're going to be fine. You can still speak like an intelligent human being, right? It's okay. It's going to work out fine. They're not going to be that bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And second of all, who gives a crap what people think? Honestly, like it does not matter. You're not. No one. The benefit of not being super famous is who the heck is going to take the time to write a bad review.
Right.
You're not going to
Some
get back.
people
I've never
will.
heard of anyone. People do, but I've in my years of doing this and in talking to people on my podcast, because I interview mainly other podcasters, I don't think I've had a single person tell me that they got some negative review early on. And the question I typically ask people is, what is your biggest fear when you were starting out in podcasting, right? And one
Mm.
of the main contenders of fears is, oh, what are people going to think? Or am I going to sound stupid? And
Mm.
then I always follow that up asking, did that fear come true? It never has, ever, not a single time. They've
Mm.
been like, no, nothing, it's fine, People are either indifferent or they liked it, you
Yeah.
know? Like the people that listened liked it. The people that didn't listen didn't listen. I mean, you know? So, yeah, just get out of your head and do it.
Yeah. And really that comes down to the message that you're putting out, because either you're gonna like it or you're not gonna like it.
Yeah.
And
You
you have to
have to
make
like
sure
what
you're
you're
actually
talking about.
standing for some kind of message. You can't just be super generic. I mean, there's some podcasts out there that they just go all over the place. It's I guess they have a great following, so it ends up working out well for them. But for some of us that are just new into it, starting out, we're not
Yeah,
a name brand, if you will. We're not popular or famous or anything. We have to be more specific. So, with
exactly.
that, what kind of subjects do you think that people should talk about? Is just anything open? What if somebody want to start a podcast? What should they do as far as a subject to start that podcast with?
I have to be honest, I don't like that question because should is a stupid word and I don't like shooting on other people.
Shooting. I like it.
So stop shooting yourselves. That's disgusting. Don't do that. So my answer to you would be talk about whatever the hell you want.
Mm, mm,
Talk about anything you want. If you want to have a podcast, then do it. Don't just bandwagon. Let's say, oh, I'm gonna be a coach, right? And
mm,
everybody has a podcast. Maybe I should start one. So I'm gonna start the Coaching Success Show. I'm gonna interview coaches.
mm,
Okay, great. There's nothing unique about that at all. Why? It doesn't sound very passionate. That just sounds like you're just jumping on some marketing bandwagon. So talk about what you want to talk about. You know what I mean? And do it for you mainly. I mean, it might come across as selfish, but if you do the podcast for you and interview people you want to talk to, and then your listeners are going to benefit because that's how you draw out the insights from them. So honestly, even the coaching success show or whatever, that's still fine if that's what you want. If you want to do that, you want to interview coaches, great, do it. As long as that's something that you find interest in and want to do. So yeah, answer to your questions, whatever you want. There's no right answer.
Whatever you want. So
anything, literally anything.
Yeah, but
I just talked to a chick today who had a podcast about hoarding because she works with people like hoarders.
Interesting. Yeah, I would never listen to that, hoarding. But hey, there's people out there.
There are people out there who benefit. Do whatever.
Exactly.
Talk about whatever you want.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just more entertainment or what. Yeah.
Exactly. I've talked to people who like someone lives in Northwest Arkansas, so they have a podcast about stuff in Northwest Arkansas. Like you could do anything you want. It doesn't matter.
So should you be niched down with it too, or does that not matter?
Well, it depends. Okay, if it's connected to a business, then it does matter a little bit more, right? You have to be a bit strategic. Depends on how you want to use the podcast. Yeah. If you're using it for networking like I am, then it has to be something related to your business. I do podcasting. My podcast is called Path to Podcast Success. And I talk about podcasting. But I also talk about entrepreneurship and, pretty much anything around that. Because like I said, my podcast is mainly for me. And it's mainly for networking. And I love having listeners. I love when people listen. And I truly hope that people find value from it. But I'm not like, the almighty listener. I do everything for them. No, I'm doing it because I like talking to these people. And I find it fun, and it is an incredible networking tool for me.
Yeah,
I don't want a random listener to become a client because I don't know who the random listener is. You know what I mean? So maybe sometime down the road, as my audience continues to grow, because if you're consistent, it's going to grow. And I do, I market on social media, whatever. But maybe sometime down the road, I'll get some, hire some marketing agency to help me with making some like one-off product or course or something, and sell that to the audience, which would be beneficial for someone who may not be able to afford my services. But that's something where, I'm not going to put the time and effort in to learn how to do all that myself when I can just have someone else do it for me. So maybe down the road, but so yeah, if you have a business, it has to be a little bit more strategic, right? So you have to be talking about something related to your business, right? In the same way that if you were going to write a book to supplement your business, to put you as an expert in your field, to position you as an expert, right? You're not going to write a book about just some random thing. You're going to write a book about something related to your business. So do the same thing with a podcast. So treat it like a book as far as strategy goes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think a lot of people, actually, really, honestly, myself included, I guess I can tie it back into the speaking because mindset's a huge thing. My book's Mindset Over Motivation, and mindset is a huge thing that people have to overcome when it comes to speaking. Yeah. But I didn't have that in mind when I wrote the book. I just really wanted to help people with that mindset. But the next book's definitely going to be more focused towards that. And I can weave it back in, but it just happened to be all weave in. Yeah. But I didn't talk about
that's totally fine. The beauty of entrepreneurship is you could do literally anything you want. Some things might be more successful than others, but there are no rules. You don't have a job. You're not going to be fired.
Right.
You could do anything you want. It's just that, some things will get you success in a more guaranteed way and faster than others. So be strategic, but, it's not like your business crashed and burned because your book wasn't entirely about speaking, It's totally fine.
Oh, yeah. Well, it'd be a really boring book. If it's solely one simple thing, you don't have any kind of stories with that or anything. You're just not really talking about that. That becomes like a textbook then. And to me, it's boring.
I'm not a big fan of textbooks.
Yeah. I went to college, university and everything, but I'm done with all that formal education like that.
I dropped out of college in favor of business, and I have not looked back since. Because college kind of sucks, I got to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't miss tests or essays, not at all.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not going for a specific degree and the job you're trying to get after college or university uses that specific degree, like engineer, lawyer, doctor, what's the point? I
I
mean,
have
yeah,
friends in law
it's
school. More power to them. I was
yeah.
getting an English and creative writing degree. What the hell does that have to do with anything?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I
What does
could
that have to do
see
with
that
podcasting?
a little bit. I could see it a little bit, just the creative writing side, maybe, but still, you could just go take a course, real quick course on copywriting,
Or I could,
if
or
way
I could
better.
just look at copy and just
Yeah,
do it. I mean,
exactly,
that's you
exactly.
don't. No, I don't. I can just go watch a free 10-minute YouTube video about how to write good business copy. Boom,
Mhm.
done.
Yep,
And I don't have to spend 4 years and how many thousands of dollars at college taking
man.
GE classes, which are a big waste of time. Yeah, don't even get me started. But yeah,
Yeah,
I have
man,
a
we
few
just went
friends in
full
law
circle
school.
there. Where at the beginning we
Yeah,
talked about the discipline is basically simplicity. The same thing with business, with I guess education as well. It's simplicity. Everything needs to be simple. so, so I love it.
yes,
I wanted to ask you one last question. Dive a
yeah, go
little
for
bit
it.
into this. I know you love to use your podcast to be able to network with people. So,
I
how
do.
do you go about finding people to network with? I know we connected through Facebook, but how do you find those people to be able to network with and bring them on your podcast?
That's the $1 million question, I suppose. I have a very easy answer. I go on Facebook and I go to the section where it shows your friend requests. And when you go to the friends section on Facebook, you have an option to view your suggest. It says suggested. You can look at suggested friends. Click that, and I scroll through there, and I just
Hmm.
click each profile. And if they have an interesting bio, if they've posted in the last month, and if it looks like they actually have their stuff together. I don't know if you like cursing on this podcast or not, but if they have their stuff together, and they have a business, and if they have a podcast especially, then I will send them a message, and I handwrite this message, well, hand type, I guess, to each person. I don't have some copy paste message I send.
Hmm.
I write a message to them. I tell them what I like about what they're doing specifically, and then I invite them on the podcast. I give them a little blurb about what it is and what we might talk about. And yeah, I invite them on the podcast. And then that is my first message to them. If they have a podcast and it's something interesting and it's in business, then that almost guarantees them an invite.
Hmm.
But even if they don't have a podcast, if they're a unique and interesting entrepreneur doing powerful work, then I might still invite them on the podcast just because, I don't know, I want to talk to them about what they're doing and learn more and help spread their message further if I resonate with it. And it's my podcast, so I get to do whatever I want and talk to whoever I want.
Nice. I like
So,
that, man. And you bring that value
yeah.
right away for people because entrepreneurs are
Yes.
always looking for ways to get their
Oh,
message in front of other people's ears or eyes, whatever.
right.
And so you're
And
doing
it's
that
I
right
hate
away
and
instead of
I've
going with
even
the
had
Forex stuff. I
I get
mean,
a lot of I get a lot of compliments actually on my initial outreach message, and you'd think you see all those like the kind of sleazy marketers who send you a message out of nowhere you've never connected. They're like, "Hey, are you a coach? Are you looking for this or that?" And it's like, "No, shut the hell up." I hate that so much. No
yeah.
one should be
Oh,
doing
yeah.
that.
Yeah. That
But
one's terrible too. Oh, so glad we connected. I'm like, I haven't even accepted your friend request
yeah, who
yet,
the
but
hell are you?
yeah.
Yeah, no. I have gotten many compliments on the authenticity of my initial outreach
Mhm.
messages um, from people because it's very powerful, and it's handwritten. Like I make it obvious that it's not some automated message. I
Mhm.
tell them like I really like this and this for this and this reasons, and then I invite them on the podcast. I don't try to sell them anything. I try to give them space to talk about themselves. Who doesn't like talking about themselves?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
so that's how. So I find people on the Facebook suggested friends. You could also go into a Facebook group. I'm involved. I'm a member of some podcasting groups, so maybe I'll browse the members with things in common section.
Mm.
Those. Otherwise, I mean, I know Facebook the best, but I'm sure you could do the same thing with LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever else. And then also, when I interview someone, at the end of the interview, among other questions I ask, to take advantage of having them on the podcast, I ask, who do you know that I should know? And then hopefully then they will refer me some new guests, and then it just continues to expand from there. So I do that, and that is how I grow my business, is through my podcast and through these conversations. And then hopefully and then there's some other things I do as well, but hopefully they refer me someone or maybe even become a client themselves. But it's okay if they don't. I have no expectations or agenda.
Nice. I love it, man. Using the algorithms of the Facebooks and the Instagrams to your benefit because they're
Yeah.
very creepy sometimes and they give you all sorts of random things on theirs, but you're using them to your advantage, which we all need to be better at that. So that's a great way to be able to network. But Evan, I really appreciate you coming on, spending this time with me, helping educate us on things about podcasting and entrepreneurship and about being simple with our goals and discipline and pretty much everything in life. Just keep it simple. But if people want to reach out to you to maybe even be on your podcast or to work with you or just to be your new best friend, where can they reach you at?
I appreciate you for asking that. I am I have a website, path2podcastsuccess.com. I have a podcast by the same name you're more than welcome to listen to, Path to Podcast Success. Otherwise, if someone wants to reach out to me personally, and I'm very, very open with my advice, and I love answering questions and being of service. So if someone does want to reach out, best place to do that is social media. Evan Johnson on Facebook, Evan Johnson Podcast on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn too, but I don't go on there too often. But it's Evan Johnson, and it's on LinkedIn. And yeah, you're more than welcome to check me out any of those places.
Awesome. Well, Evan, we really appreciate your time.
Of course, thank you.